There was no meat involved.
The 9 Years Podcast.
All right, everybody, welcome to the 9 Years Podcast. I am Nick Draper, as always, joined by Stuart Deacon. Stu, how are you this week?
It's very good, mate. Very good.
We are on episode 77 of the show this Thursday. 77, always in my mind, conjures up a memory of 1977, which was not only a classic album from the band Ash, but also, correct me if I'm wrong, the year Wimbledon won promotion to the Football League.
I think you're correct.
That's quite good knowledge. You could use that knowledge in maybe a pub quiz. And actually, Stu, on Monday night, the wonderful parents and the Parent-Teacher Association at my school held a pub quiz night.
Okay, how'd you get on?
Well, guess where the teacher's table finished?
You'd hope they finished quite high up, mate, do you know what I mean? But I'm guessing by the way you're talking, you didn't.
No, we did indeed finish first. Numero uno.
Well done.
For the second year running. And there wasn't even an AFC Wimbledon or a WWE round. And we still won. Did you happen to know, I'm casting my mind back, well, this was great, actually, because the guys running it, they were great, but they'd also Googled a lot of the answers, which came for some hilarity. Did you know that who is the fastest man on the planet right now?
On the planet, I would say Usain Bolt, 100 metres.
Apparently, it's actually somebody called Usain Bolt.
Mr. Bolt to his friends.
And also, do you know John Lennon, Imagine? Do you know what year that happened to be released?
Oh, crikey. That was way before my time, that was. I don't know, late 70s, late 70s, 77.
It was actually 1971. However, when the answers were read out, we were told it was 1988.
Wow.
Which I quite correctly pointed out was in fact a very famous year for obvious reasons on an AFC Wimbledon podcast. I also had to sort of point out that it was very, very good of John Lennon to have released said single 8 years after he had died.
He also got the back release, didn't he? Like Michael Jackson, people like that do. See?
Oh, is that what happened?
Possibly. These are songs I'm going to release when I've stuffed it.
That was a great video they managed to put together.
That's very true.
Considering he was 8 years dead. But anyway, moving swiftly on, we've got a lot to talk about this week, haven't we? So I suppose we should speed things up. Top 7 lists.
Yes.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, so I thought very topical. Obviously, we're going to talk about it very, very quickly and briefly, but obviously we've got a bit of a spanking up at Sheffield United on Saturday, so I thought I'd go for my top 7 Wimbledon defeats, like heavy defeats, a bit shock defeats, and yeah, I thought I'd do that.
Top 7
defeats, yeah, like a bit of spankings, got a backsides tamed a little bit.
So really, this is your top 7 spankings.
Yes,
this could be interesting, right?
So, in no particular order, who can forget Aston Villa 7-1 away defeat in February 1995? In the same year, which I found really surprising, not the same season, but the same year, we lost 6-1 up at Newcastle in October 1995. Of course, who can forget the horrible Burton 6-2 and Bradford 5-1 back in August 2012? I remember our first spanking as AFC Wimbledon, which was up at up across AFC Wallingford. They beat us 3-0. Hampton and Richmond, when they beat us 4-0 at home in April 2006. If I remember, I think we had a sending off in that game, if I remember properly. And finally, one that's forever in my memory, the York City 5-0 hammering at the hands of Rankin and Brodie up at York, 5-0 in 2010.
Thank you very much for that wonderful walk down memory lane.
No problem at all.
Cheers for that, Stu.
That's okay.
My top 7 list, just because I was watching this TV show just as we started to record the show, and I thought, everybody has a top 7 list of their favourite ever one-show presenters.
Has there been 7?
Well, should we go for personalities? You know, those people that come on and present like a feature on something or other?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So, I've gone for Angelica Bell, Adrian Chiles, Jason Manford, Giles Brandreth, Anita Rani, Dominic Littlewood, and Joe Inglis. And no, I don't know either.
Hey, this is Thompson, keyboardist for these fine gentlemen. And even across the pond, we're rocking along to the 9 Years Podcast.
So, it's not been the best week for us as a football club on the pitch. with certain results across many of our different teams. Generally, though, our week pales in comparison to the season that clubs such as Charlton and Coventry have been having, and that is the main feature of this week's podcast. We'll be talking to fans from both clubs about their respective situations with their owners ahead of our 2 home games this week against said clubs. We'll also have all the usual features, Podium Go to a Tango. We've just had our top 7 lists, and now we're going to have a look back at the first team. And before we go anywhere with this, Stu, I have some bad news.
Oh, okay, go on.
My change kit list of shame. I'm afraid to say AFC Wimbledon.
You just made the list!
Because I'm fuming at this one, actually. There is no reason whatsoever for us not to be in blue this weekend, or the weekend just gone. We had a whole week before we had to use the kit again.
Yeah, I was surprised when I saw we were playing yellow, because you're right, it doesn't clash with blue. But if I remember correctly, and I actually might be wrong, didn't Sheffield United play in their away kit against us in the season?
I don't think they did. I think they played in red and white stripes.
So in that case, then we have no excuse whatsoever.
In fact, in preparing for Saturday's game, I was looking through some match reports, and I can 100% confirm Sheffield United were in red and white stripes.
Yeah, I don't get why we did that. Maybe it didn't help us. Maybe that was a problem. We thought, oh, 1 second, we're playing in... Actually, no, we don't play red, do we? So, I don't know, maybe we just got confused playing in those luminous yellow tops.
It's not been the most successful kit for us, has it, either. We need to maybe think about going back to the green kit, because that seems to be a little bit more successful. Although, either or, really, or even our blue kit away from home, we haven't scored away from home in the league since October. Still.
That's a horrible record, isn't it?
It's a bit of a worrying record. In terms of the defeat at Bramall Lane, did you go into that game expecting anything different? Be honest. When we went into that game, we'd have all taken a point, but what were you actually thinking would happen?
I had 2 ways of thinking about it, and I think I sort of said this on the podcast last week, but I felt if we kept it tight, we may get away with a best and very best. We'd get a draw. Maybe I said a 1-0 defeat. But I also had a sneaky feeling if we did concede early, which we have a tendency sometimes not to switch on, and it could be a bit of a hammering, and that's what it turned out. But I think, I felt a 1-0 defeat. I didn't think we were going to win there. I didn't think we were going to score there either.
Well, no, we've touched on our lack of goals away from home is a big, big handicap. And as you say, going behind so early makes it even more difficult if we're struggling to score. We never look likely scoring either, if I'm being honest. We certainly seem to set up with the intention of frustrating Sheffield United. I'm laughing as I say that because it just shows you, however well you set up, because we'll never know, will we? We'll never know if Neil got his tactics right or not, really, because within the first minute, 2 mistakes have led to the opening goal. Individual errors, and players haven't done their jobs. We went for long spells for that first half. When we actually kept in position and in shape, we did kind of frustrate them. They didn't get in behind us. James Shea didn't have to a save to make. He didn't have a shave to make either, but it would have been a bit silly to be doing it at the time. So really, it just shows you how important it is that you're on it from the very first minute, and players know their roles and do the jobs that they are there to do. You might wonder who I'm referencing there.
Well, the funny thing is that we had obviously Matt, didn't we, from Sheffield United fan on last week's podcast, and he did say, if you come like Fleetwood have, and a lot of teams have, and put men behind the ball, then they're going to have a difficult afternoon, and we didn't do that because we got men behind the ball, but unfortunately we just didn't dominate the free kick. It was interesting. I remember obviously you were chatting on the way back from Sheffield United, and there was a few people moaning about individual mistakes. Obviously James Shea made the error for the first goal, but you were more looking about how we sort of failed to really solve the problem of them attacking down our right side, didn't we? And even though the goal doesn't show it, the free kick come from, again, Kelly and Bartram not really getting together and dealing with the threat.
Yeah, that's why I say 2 mistakes, because the free kick comes because Sean Kelly is trying to defend against 2 men on that side. So he needs someone to tuck in and help. That someone, I would suggest, judging by the way we lined up on Saturday, was Andy Bartram. But that didn't happen. He obviously couldn't cope with the 2 players. 2-on-1 situation against the top of the league side. They're 99 times out of 100 going to come out on top in that situation. They did. It led to the free kick being conceded. I'm not sure, in reality, we can't really blame Sean Kelly for conceding the free kick. It was just one of those, it happens in the situation that he found himself in. And then obviously James Shea, yeah, of course. Of course, if James catches that first time, then there isn't a goal, obviously. But then he shouldn't have been put in that situation in the first place.
It is just concentration, though, isn't it? Because realistically, yes, I know the free kick comes in, but it's bread and butter. I know Billy Sharp runs across the line. He's obviously in his eye line. He's probably thinking, James Shea, is he going to get a touch? Is he going to clap at me? Is he going to do anything? But it's just it's a basic error, which, James Shea's had a great season and doesn't make many errors, but the error he has made has really opened the floodgates, because I'd imagine after that, obviously you were there on Saturday, I'd imagine after that Sheffield United crowd obviously then went up a few decibels, and it probably became a bit of a difficult afternoon after that.
You would normally expect that. I cannot say, with all due respect to Sheffield United fans, that the decibels raised any way whatsoever.
Really?
Very, very quiet. I think it's one of those where you're a top of the league team, you're coming into a home game against a team you're expected to beat, you score an early goal, and you kind of just sit back and just watch, really, because you've got nothing really, there's nothing to get behind. You're comfortable, you're 1-0 up, you're comfortably defending, you're not being under any trouble. Second goal comes, and it's game over, really.
It's frustrating, isn't it? It's frustrating that we've gone there and not really. I know there's obviously been a lot on social media this week, and I think the fans' gripe at the moment is not the fact that we accept that with the wage budgets, etc., that there is a difference in class in terms of player ability. But I think, we've done all season, we've matched people for work rate and that bit of a passion. And I think we've been caught short, really, haven't we? With all that preparation and stuff like that. But sometimes it's just that little bit extra on the pitch we need, which we haven't. Do you think the players went into their shell a little bit? 20,000 at Sheffield United. Do you think it was a bit intimidating, or was it just generally just caught cold early on?
I wondered about that. I'm thinking, I've not checked this, but I'm pretty sure that must be the highest attendance we played in front of in a league game, in a league fixture. I can't think of going to any clubs that would have attracted more fans than that before. Can you think of any off the top of your head?
No, I think Charlton would have had Charlton, I checked, about 13,000. Probably when we went to Buckinghamshire, actually I don't think there was that many.
Not that many, no.
On them, didn't we? No, I'm thinking Bradford again don't really get into them figures, do they? So no, it's probably one of the biggest crowds we played in. One of the quietest ones, by what you're saying. But you do wonder, don't you? Do you know what I mean? Because sometimes when you play at these stadiums, the pitch all of a sudden looks bigger, even though it's not. It's just because of the size of the stands around it, and you just wonder sometimes. The home, we are very comfortable at home in our own surroundings and that sort of thing. You just wonder sometimes, going to these big stadiums, have we really got that experience yet? And it's not trying to make excuses. It's just just trying to look at anything why we've not performed recently in these places.
I mean, many people's counter arguments will be Wembley and how well we performed in front of that crowd, but that's slightly different. You're not outnumbered significantly by 20-1. I wonder though, was it more we have some players that are just struggling? I know we've had 2 weeks off, and that's an argument as well. People questioning fitness levels and what have you. But I think there are certain positions where there are players that are there's so much pressure on them to perform every single week. And it's difficult. It's difficult to lift yourself, especially against, as we say, one of the better teams in the league. And it was. Sheffield United are the best team I've seen by a country mile this season. Yeah,
but Joe, the 2-week thing, there was a few people, and I try and very much to have a balanced view. I've done the away games. Up to last season, I did heavy percentage of away games. I know it's like when you keep travelling to these away grounds and you don't turn up and you keep getting beat. But the 2-week preparation, for me, that's all it is. It doesn't make you better footballers. It makes you a bit more prepared. But it doesn't mean you can all of a sudden, you can get that extra ability. You just work hard on the set plays and stuff like that. But then that goes out the window on a basic free kick. And like you say, you never know whether actually we did set up. I do think we have got some players at the moment that we need to think about. Have we got proper competition? Are we playing the correct formation? There's even silly little things, Darius Charles at the moment, sometimes we go away from home, do we get overrun in midfield? He can play midfield. Do we put another holding midfielder in there? It's so many different things you can do, but I just wonder what the sense is of playing Andy Bartram in a wide position when we all know that defensively, tracking back is not his strength.
But then do we have, I suppose... Do you think maybe a George Frankham comes in and does that role? Is he better as a wide midfielder in that situation? because he's more defensively switched on. Does a Dean Parrott perhaps fill in that side? We are really struggling for options. Jonathan Meads, I guess, could do that.
Yeah,
but then he's always injured.
I think you keep your central area as strong as you can, and yeah, George Frankham can play in there. He won't play out wide right, but he can tuck in and make that 4 in midfield a solid 4. It's difficult, isn't it? I just wonder: are we being too gung ho away from home and going, you know, we're going to attack? And can we do that? Or, you know, have we got the ability to go there and attack, or do we have to accept sometimes that we have to get men behind the ball, we have to frustrate, and then in the later ends of the games, we then try and win? Because at the beginning of the season, we were playing at a high percentage in terms of we were playing 100%, all fighting on the same page and that sort of thing. But the moment our performance levels drop to anywhere 90%, 85%, that's when this league all of a sudden becomes a tough league for us.
Yeah, I think that sums up quite nicely, actually. And you could definitely see the gap in quality. We have to be very honest and say, as we are overachieving as a club, we know that on the field. And I think an afternoon like Saturday just does show you the gap in quality that there is from the teams at the very top end to ourselves. I mean, the concern is we've still got a big gap to the bottom 4 as well, but we're struggling for goals. Performances haven't been great for a little while, and there are clubs at the bottom of the league just starting to pick up results again. So we're looking at 4-5 wins to maintain our safety. I think we just want to get those on the board as quickly as possible, don't we?
Yeah, it's got to that little bit of I haven't looked too much at the bottom of the table for ages, but I'm starting to look more towards that end. We have got a healthy lead. We don't, realistically, are we going to get caught in a relegation battle? Unlikely. Do we want to just finish the season nervously looking over our shoulder, knowing that they're probably not going to catch us, but we just better make sure? And no, we want to try and get to that. And also, the reason we want to try and get to that points target is because then we can start playing the Tom Beers, the Alfie Egans, start giving them some League One experience ready for next year, because we've got to push on, really.
We didn't do a man of the match poll on Twitter. It would have been somewhat insulting, I feel, had we done one, considering I don't think there was anyone that stood out particularly. Maybe Darius Child had a pinch, but we did do our 3-word reports. I'm just going to read you a few of these. Bob Wales on Twitter, @thegrump64, said Steele, no goals. Steele as in Sheffield Steel, with the double E there. Enjoyed that one. Lots of these on Facebook and Twitter featured words that I don't really want to repeat, but can probably give you a flavour of people's opinions of what happened on Saturday. Gary Wilkes on Facebook went for Passion's Day Off. You've mentioned that just as we talked about the game there. A lot of our fans thinking that it was a case of our players not turning up, not putting a shift in. I'm not sure it wasn't putting a shift in. I just think there were, as we've discussed, other things that led to our demise on Saturday. Simon Hayes on Facebook went for United We Fell. And I have to give a shout out to my dad here, because he went for Blades Too Sharp, with a capital S for Sharp. Therefore, it is a proper noun for Billy Sharp, of course. That was Mark Draper @mdrapermark on Twitter. Do you want to do a quick 2-word tango?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Still a very, very quick one. We've got lots to fit in to the show this week, and I have to furiously find the music for it before we can do anything. So you might hear some clicking and some other scraping, whatever noises in the background. What do you want to do this week, Stu? Should we just go for my brain's hurting? I can't think too much. And we struggle as this game as it is. Can we just do any celebrity this week?
Any celebrities?
Any celebrity in the world.
Yeah. Football celebrities or?
Okay. How about we go for England internationals?
Okay, cool. We can do that, yes.
Oh, okay. Just England internationals? Yeah.
Yeah, England internationals.
Okay, great. Let's go.
Gotta listen out for this guy. He's a famous name, but don't flop. Something like Sebastian Coe.
You need to go first.
Oh, celebrity 2-word tango.
Bobby Moore.
Paul Gascoigne.
Trevor Brooking.
Bobby Zamora.
Peter Shilton. Bobby Zamora.
Peter Crouch. It counts.
Oh no! You threw me with stupid Zamora.
Zamora play. I saw him with my own eyes play for England.
Oh no way! Was that 1 second? Are we talking like? Oh, we can count friendlies as well, can't we? Count friendlies. We count anybody. To be fair.
Yeah.
Oh, you threw me with Zamora.
What were you going to go for? Were you going to go for Ian Wright?
No, I don't know what I was going to go for. I was going to go for Michael Owen, but I forgot his first name because I was too busy questioning about Zamora.
Again, that's podcast gold there. I was going to go for Michael Owen, but I forgot his first name. That said, Stu, this is a brilliant story from work this week, actually. I mentioned our pub quiz earlier. This was great. So It started about 7:30, and we were all doing some work, and I thought I'll just give one of the other teachers a call, see where he is, see if I can meet him up on the way to the pub. So I gave him a call, and I said to him, "Whereabouts are you?" And he explained. He goes, "Yeah, I'm with sorry, what's your name again?"
Awkward.
Oh my word.
Awkward.
How awkward was that conversation? It was the fact that I knew he was struggling to remember the name of the person he was with, but then he didn't try and talk his way out of it. He just went, "Do you know what? I'm just going to ask her what her name is." I thought, wow.
No. Was she a work colleague?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, I just called her Doris maybe or so. I don't know.
I'm not sure that would have been the solution. But then again, this said teacher was also called the wrong name by another member of staff for 6 months before he actually managed to correct her, which was brilliant. It's like the episode of Friends where the guy thinks that Chandler's actual name is Toby, and he never has the heart to tell him. Actually happened in real life. But anyway, enough of my hilarious work life. Let's move on. Charlton supporters battle against their owner, and we've had this conversation on the podcast before, Stu, and his name always causes me trouble when I'm trying to pronounce it. But Roland Duchatelet. Duchatelet, thank you very much. That is the voice of Gavin Eastley, who's joining us to talk about what's going on at the Valley. Gavin has been watching Charlton since the late 60s, so you've seen it all, Gavin, haven't you, through the moves to Selhurst Park and the returns to the Valley and Premier League and relegation back to League One and all that. You've been through it all. This seems, at the moment, to be one of the hardest challenges facing your club, or any club, in trying to oust a, let's say, less than respectable owner from your wonderful football club. Reading up on the internet, the campaign against Roland, and I'm not going to be able to say his name, I'm just going to call him Roland from now on, are taken up, I think, lots of protests during the season. We'd have seen all of these that have been happening at the Valley, but another one planned, I believe, for early March, where fans are actually heading over to Belgium.
Yeah, I think it's the same day we play Northampton away. So that will sell out, so they can't argue that it would take fans away from that. But yeah, 4th of March, Eddie Struden.
So what's the plan there? Do you know what they're actually going to be doing? Or at the moment it's just a delegation going over with...
I think it's a sort of invitation. I mean, there's a number of groups who are going. I mean, to be honest, I'm not part of that. I support those groups, but I don't know how the organisation and what have you. But there's about 3 or 4 different groups who are going. I mean, the most recent one is War, Women Against the Regime. So they're those people are going out there. I'm in two minds. I may well go. I know that the people I go to Charlton with are mostly getting tickets for Northampton, but I think it's moved ground. We've on some ways it feels like what we did at the Valley was brilliant. It got a lot of national coverage, but it didn't affect him. He never comes to the games, Duchatelet. He never turns up. Last time he was there was November 14. But he is embarrassed. He clearly gets embarrassed by stuff that happens in Belgium. I think this will be the 3rd or 4th time people have been out to Belgium to protest.
Now, Duchatelet, there you go, I think that's as close as I'm going to get it.
Good.
Obviously has been interfering in the past in first team affairs. I think Chris Powell might have been a manager that was sacked and wasn't happy because the owner was starting to get involved in picking the first team and choosing which signings to bring into the club and ensuring that those signings were played. And then you've had a whole host of first team coaches that have come in that just haven't seemed to be the right fit whatsoever, out of their depth completely. Aside from the meddling in first team affairs that has actually seen you falling back into League One, what are the other problems that Duchatelet, there we go, has inflicted upon you?
Well, I mean, you're right to say he said he wasn't interfering, but clearly there's emails now, the email evidence that he was. He got rid of our 2 best players, said they were very poor, and replaced them with inadequate players. I think he sent 5 over, and between them they got about, I think, 12 starts, something like that. His big thing at the moment, which he said on Belgian television and in the newspapers around Christmas, was that football is not about winning. It's about having a good dance after a game.
What a weird. It's interesting what you're saying, actually, because I was just looking for the first seasons. He was 3rd of January 2014. In that window, he brought in 4 players from Standard Liège.
Yeah.
3 on loan. Sold Kermagat to Bournemouth on transfer deadline day.
Yeah.
It's mad. Obviously, when foreigners come in, I suppose they want to come in and take over a club. Charlton got great history. Premiership stadium already there. He's obviously looking at Premiership football, but just out of his depth, and also brought in a chief executive who the only experience she had was in European law, which I just find amazing.
He had worked at Standard Liège for a bit, but I'm not entirely sure doing what. She was 30. She's a woman. We're all right on. We thought, oh, that's good. We're, Charlton is up for that. But she proved to be completely incompetent. I mean, she's a stooge, really. She says things that clearly he overturns 24 hours later. What's happened now is that she had a bit of a car crash on TalkSport before Christmas, an interview on the Jim White show. And they brought in a new PR team, and they've obviously told her to just be quiet. So we haven't heard from her since that interview in October, November. We've not heard a word from her. So they've kept her quiet. I don't know what she's doing now. Just signing bad deals. Signing poor players on 4.5-year contracts, but not giving them the money to buy decent players. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. So what is she? So she's still going to games, isn't she? So she's the public face. If that's what it is, basically, she's at games. So she's still going games, is she? Is that right?
I don't think she has been to all of them. I don't know if she was at Saturday's game. I had a look in the director's box and I couldn't see her, but she could have been there. She used to go to everything. She used to travel on the train to various games, including away games, but she was being pilloried by the end. I mean, the most famous one was where someone in the upper tier had a giant banner with the word liar written on it, an arrow pointing down at her. And, so she was the butt of all the angst against Du Châtelet, but I think people have come to realise that she's just a stooge and that he's sitting up in Belgium making all these decisions. And so that's why the protests were taken to Belgium and linked up with his hometown club, which is St. Truden, which are in the top league. And they've taken it, and their fans can't stand him either. So they've taken it over there, and it seems to embarrass him. He sacked Russell Slade after one intervention where people turned up at his birthday meal, and the next day he sacked Russell Slade. And okay, we had an appalling game against Swindon the day before, but it would be in keeping with his kind of knee-jerk, angry reaction to things that he would do something like that.
Yeah, it makes you wonder who would take that job, I suppose. Obviously, you pretty more than aware of what our gripe, or obviously your current manager, but it's interesting now why I want to take that manager position, really, isn't it?
Well, the only thing I can think of is you think you sign a 3-year contract, I think I only have to work for 3 months.
Very true. So this protest, I'm just looking out in Belgium. So it's got the Charlton Athletic Supporters Trust, the Coalition Against Rowan de la Chat, Belgium 20, and Women Against Regimes. There's quite a lot of groups, isn't there? And quite a lot of money being raised as well, isn't there, for the protest?
Yeah, 50,000 apparently. Yeah. Yeah.
So how's that being raised? Because I did see there was alternative programs, merchandise. Is that how it's being raised? The money, is it?
I think it's donations. I imagine within that you've got a couple of big donors, but yeah, it's mostly people giving 20 quid here or there. That's the sort of thing I've given over. The alternative programs are free. They did do a shirt, an alternative, like it's like a polo shirt that sold out. I don't know how many they did of those, but I think it's mostly donations. They don't do fundraisers or anything.
Okay.
So looking at the regime, there are 2 questions really for me. The first one is being, what do you actually think Du Châtelet is getting out of staying in position at the Valley. It seems very, very odd. And the second thing is, should he leave, we've talked about donations being made there and supporters raising a lot of money. Is there the means for supporters to take over the running of that club as it is? And is that what fans are hoping will be the outcome?
I think you'll find lots of different opinions about that. I think the longer he stays, the more our club is having its heart and soul ripped out. And I think actually it doesn't matter what we get as far as results go. We know that even if we get promoted, it's not going to happen this season, but next season, say, even if that happens, I still think it's a decline of this club, and the longer he stays, the worse it will get. Now, what would happen afterwards, we don't know. There was some talk recently that, he bought it for about 14 million, but apparently he's put a 75 million price tag on us. And he's not given anything. Everything that comes into the training ground or anything is all on a 3% loan, apparently. But 75 million price, and there was some talk that Red Bull were interested. Now, I think there'd be a lot of fans, myself included, that if we had to call ourselves Red Bull Charlton, we wouldn't like that very much. So the idea that you're saying is, could we become AFC Charlton? In some ways, I think the longer he stays around, the nearer that moment comes. And that people are already, there's always been a slight fan base at Charlton. The people who can't get enough football will go to the clubs that people go to. We've got Dulwich Hamlet for the sort of London Charlton fans, and then your Kent fans, you're spoiled for choice at the moment because you've got quite a few doing quite well. Dartford, Ebbsfleet, even Welling, Bromley. That you talk to people and you find out that they're going to those games. More and more people are going to those games. But I don't know. Is AFC Charlton, is that likely? Is because of who we are, potential fan base, great stadium, in London, you'd think we would be attracted to someone.
Yeah, I imagine there'll be someone out there that would be very, very interested. And to be honest with you, I don't think you would want to go down the AFC Charlton route. I think you've got a fantastic football club there. I think it's just a case of getting your own route and getting someone in.
It was a great article. We've got Voice of the Valley as a fanzine, very good fanzine. There was a very good article with your Eric. What's his?
Eric Samuelson, yeah.
There's a good article with him, but he made it very clear for you to push on will cost a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And where would that money come from? So I know that that it's difficult, and yes, I think if it ever happened, it would be as an alternative to whatever continued at the Valley. People like FCU, what Manchester United fans did.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you talk about attendances, I'm just looking back through here. So average in 14-15 was 16,000. Then the season after, 16,708 was average. And then last season, 11,000. So, and that's only 41% capacity of stadium. It's a massive stadium now, isn't it? So, as it gradually started, as people, obviously protests are difficult to get momentum sometimes. I know some of the stuff you've done has been really, really imaginative in what you've done there. Is it going to get to a stage where fans are going to go, do you know what, I'm going to go elsewhere, like you were saying?
I think, there's been a sort of, history keeps repeating itself, and we get these managers get sacked. There's too many loan players in, so they all go back to their parent clubs. The next manager has to rebuild. Even if we managed to get into the playoffs, I don't think we will. We got much of a dance this season. But if we did even got into the playoffs and then we went up by a fluke, he would still want to sell a couple of our young players who've come through in the last few months. If he sold them, I'd seriously think about, can I continue going actually?
That's interesting because obviously the deal that took Lookman to Everton, I think initially £8 million with potential going up to £11 million. That's not been seen back in the transfer budget, has it?
It was first of all, his chief exec said there's absolutely no way it'll be sold in January. We all took that as a pinch of salt by her usual standards, and then almost immediately it was deemed to be going to the building of the new training ground. That money was going there. It was not, and somewhere I read that Robinson was given 500,000 of it.
Okay.
Went off. He went off with a squad. He made a big song and dance about going off to Belgium to meet with the owner to talk about his transfer targets. And I think he came back with his tail between his legs, actually.
So it sort of brings us on really to how we're getting on at the moment. So new manager come in. How you found him? Obviously, he comes from an interesting past, shall we say? How have you found him so far?
I mean, I never had thought that highly of him when he was what do you call him? The franchise.
There's many things we call him, but we're a family show. Franchise will do, yeah.
But some people seem to not like him. They thought he was mouthy. I'd never really picked that up from him. I don't know why. But when he came in, he seemed very enthusiastic. I mean, I'm gradually losing a bit of faith in him. His record actually is not that much better than Russell Slade's, but he's had some tougher games. But his record's not much better. What he has done is made the football a bit more attractive. We're a bit more on the front foot. We're a bit more attacking, but we're still not scoring many goals. And that's what he bases his game on: scoring goals. Well, it's what they all should, really. But he's done that. But in actual fact, when I think of the number of good games that I've seen, I could say Saturday first half and the second half against Bristol Rovers. But really, apart from that, the football's not been that great, and we have been dire. I mean, 2-0 we lost at home to Peterborough. We were dire. And we were actually first half against Bristol Rovers, even though we eventually won 4-1. So on the football side, I think he's got us looking better. We pass more, we attack, but I don't think he can manage a game very well. I think he blew the game against Fleetwood.
Yeah, it was a late goal, wasn't it? A late goal, 4 minutes into added time at the end of the game.
He completely weakened our left side though with his substitutions, and I think he had options, and so he's done that a couple of times. So I'm not quite sure of his ability. Actually, he's a good talker.
So I guess really, with your saying there, you don't think you'll get playoffs this season. I think it's looking to be sort of a mid-table kind of finish. It's be a very, very interesting summer, and a lot about your future will probably depend, I guess. Especially with continuing protests, attendances falling, we're going to envisage next season as well. So, where do you see the next few years going?
If he's with us, well, firstly, like I said, if he's with us, even if we went up, I still think that his intentions are, first of all, I think they're totally unrealistic. This sort of somehow getting to a place where he can maintain his position, where he doesn't push for promotion but avoids relegation. I mean, you hear clubs talk about that, but I mean, one of their first statements was where you can see the Premiership players of the future before they move on. And one manager said, have got to get away from this idea, thinking they can go away to matches and win games. I mean, they do come out with some rubbish.
And it sounds like he's come out with quite a lot.
Yeah.
The last couple of years.
Well, I'm not sure I answered your question where we go. I mean, it does feel as though the heart's being ripped out. I think that if he does sell, we've got two good players coming through, Conser and Aribo, who Robinson, to give him his due, Robinson brought into the team, and they're a revelation actually. But if he sells then in summer, I mean, that will be a major blow to going along. You're thinking, what on earth is going on if those two guys get sold? Probably, I mean, Lookman, I think they did quite a good deal with Lookman, but then he's an outstanding talent. But these two guys, if they go for 2-3 million, I mean, what are we doing?
Absolutely. Well, we wish you all the best for the rest of the season and for all the campaign against Roland Duchâtelet. And thank you very much for joining us, Gavin.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Of course, another club with many, many ownership off-the-field problems at the moment is Coventry, who will also be welcoming to Kingsmeadow over the coming week. We thought the Charlton story was bizarre and complicated and complex. The Coventry story is even more so, with owners that the fans are desperate to get rid of, all sorts of problems with stadium and ownership of the stadium and allowance to play at the stadium and all things going on. We've been joined by Ryan Benton, who is a lifelong Coventry fan. But Ryan, you've just been telling us that, aside from the fact you've also moved away from the area, but you've taken a step away from watching games at the moment. Is that a lot to do with the situation you're finding yourself in as a group of fans, as a fan base, with your owners?
Yeah, the situation we're in at the minute it's very difficult, especially more recently with all the protests and everything that's been going on. But it's hard to see a team that you support all your life really struggling like we are now, and on the verge of going into League Two. It's pretty heartbreaking, to be fair. How
long then now have Sisu been in charge of your club? I hesitate to say had been in charge at the Ricoh Arena because there's all sorts of issues with the ground as well, but in terms of ownership of Coventry City?
I believe it was 9 years.
Really?
A couple of months ago, so it's a fair while now. Yeah, they've oversaw some of the worst things that happened to the club in our history. We rose from the same as yourselves, from pretty humble beginnings to being a Premier League club, and then obviously dropped out of that when it became a bit too competitive for us. And since then, since they took over us in the Championship, we've fallen further and further.
It's one of those classic stories, isn't it? When I look at it, I remember going to Highfield Road. Used to love Highfield Road, proper old school ground. I've got very good memories, and I think we won there a few times, so it's always better memories as well. But it strikes me as a typical Championship, and you see quite a lot of clubs doing this at the moment, don't you? Where it's that case of chasing that dream, getting to the Premiership, go to a new ground. Was that really the start of all the problems? Because it's sort of going away from Highfield Road and going to the Ricoh Arena, which isn't owned by Coventry, has now really left them in a real precarious position, hasn't it?
Yeah, as I think moving away, looking back, wasn't the best thing to do. Yes, it was to a beautiful new ground. It is an excellent ground. It doesn't get the same atmosphere, but I think the way that was managed from beginning to end was just very bad. So our previous chairman before wasn't the best in the world, Brian Richardson. He oversaw quite a lot of players being sold on for fees that we probably could have got more from further down the line, and probably oversaw the start of all this, really. So, because,
correct me if I'm wrong, I think you moved into the Ricoh Arena, it must have been about 2005, if memory serves me correctly.
Yeah.
At the time, of course, it's seen as a necessary step because that was, as Stu was mentioning there, the sort of in vogue thing to do is upgrade, get to a new purpose-built stadium. But Sisu would have then come in a couple of years after that. What's happened then with the stadium? You would have been, or you'd owned it when you first moved into it. Is that correct?
Yes, we did have some ownership, and it was partially given to a charity, I believe, Alan Higgs Trust, which and also a company called ACL, which were running it for a while, who then further down the line have sold it to Wasp Rugby Club, which is another kick in the teeth, really. Losing our home ground to a London-based rugby club.
Yeah, because I'm looking here. It was the Higgs charity owned 50%, and the ACL, which is Arena Coventry Limited, which I've got. When I look back, was jointly owned by the Coventry City Council. Was that right?
That's true.
Which is unbelievable, because obviously when I was looking back at it, it was just amazing to see. But when I look back, it was a case that there's now legal action going on with Sisu because of money that was provided by Coventry City Council to ACL to keep them going, and that's what's now keeping this mess going, isn't it? From what I believe. Yeah.
Sisu have been fighting in the courts pretty much since the sale permanently, they've been taking it to court and then to a higher court, and now it's going through the second judicial review, I believe now. It's obviously costing the club. They tell us it's not, but how can it not be, really, at the end of the day? And it is costing us not just financially. It's losing us fans and things. We don't have a real home. We don't have a future as it stands, So
yeah, it's a question we asked Charlton fan Gavin that was just with us about the ownership, and really, what are they getting out of it at this stage? What are they getting out of staying in power at the club? We're seeing all the protests, and we'll come on to those in a moment. I guess we call it PR, I suppose. It's reflecting really badly on the owners as well.
Yeah, I mean, the way they keep referring to our fans when they've been on, our so-called chairman has been on Talk Sport, talking about our fans and calling us customers. They obviously don't understand football, and it just shows the lack of respect for us. It's just everything like that keeps happening. It just is ruining the club, really. So
I find it amazing that they're calling you customers, but then is that to be expected when you have a hedge fund as the owner of a football club? There seems no reason why a hedge fund should be anywhere near a football club.
No, I think you're right there. I think, looking back, I think it's a lesson for a lot of other clubs to learn from. Unfortunately, it's happened to us, and hopefully, at some point in the future, we can get somebody in charge that actually cares about the club. But yeah, it's a good lesson to all the other clubs out there. So. Have
they looked to sell at all, though? Because I know when we were talking to Charlton earlier in the show, they were saying that their owner had put a £75 million tag on Charlton. Have Sisu tried to look at selling the club or anything like that?
Yeah, they've never really admitted to actively trying to sell it. They've always said that they've been offered amounts that they didn't think were realistic. One of those was rumoured to be £1 and things like that. When they were telling us we were £60-70 million in debt, so why would anybody offer anything more than £1 to take on that amount of debt, really?
Yeah, suppose you're really banking on somebody coming in, a real white knight to come in and rescue you, really. You're thinking, staring relegation into the face, in the face even. Crowds obviously falling rapidly. We can discuss perhaps a Wembley appearance another time in a certain competition, which is possibly not the most favourable competition.
No.
But it does make you wonder. I'm looking at the situation thinking, surely those owners are losing a hell of a lot of money. They need to get out and put it in the hands of fans that would actually look after it. Now, your fans are clearly very passionate about the situation. We've seen lots and lots of protests at many, many games this season. I am of the opinion that is the correct thing to do. I think they've targeted them quite well as well with live games on Sky to really get the point across of the problems facing the club. But have protests also been a bit divisive? I look back to the couple of seasons you spent at Northampton. I remember the time there was a lot of division amongst supporters, those that were still attending the games, thinking that everyone should be attending the games, not withholding their income, in the hopes not to harm the club any further. A lot of fans obviously protested and never went there.
There's been the Not One Penny More campaign, which some people have been following. I don't completely believe that. I think you should support the team where you can. What is it, Northampton? No, I personally didn't go. And a lot of people didn't go. And there was people that used to go and watch it from the hill nearby, or protest on the hill nearby, shall I say, about it. And yeah, the protests that are ongoing now, there are a lot of fans out there that will say it's not the right thing to do to interrupt the games. I think it has brought us to the attention of some people it wouldn't have before, though, like Jim White on Talksport and people like that. They're really standing up and taking notice now, instead of before. It really didn't get mentioned in the news a lot, even though there was some pretty awful stuff going on at the club.
It's mad, isn't it? Because sometimes when you go below the Premiership and the Championship, press don't seem to want to, don't even think football survives below Championship sometimes. But to see, I look at the league table at the moment. To see Coventry 5 points adrift at the bottom of League One is still. It's still I'm of an older age, so of course I've been at Highfield Road. I still find it amazing. A club that I class as a real big club in a sort of area. Doing that is just amazing. And now, like I say, splitting your fan base. I see on Saturday there was protest, wasn't there, at Northampton? So that was Saturday before, I believe, wasn't it? Yeah. It makes you like. I wonder now whether the club will get fined. That's just basically just putting more damage onto a club already. Is it a case though fans are being split because on the one hand you want to go and support your club because that's your club, but on the other hand the more money you put into the club, it's counterproductive, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, if you keep going and keep feeding these people that are running the club, then you are kind of part of the problem. In my kind of opinion, it's not everybody's opinion. Some people believe you should support them, whatever. And I still support the lads. Don't get me wrong. I still look and listen to the games and look for the results if I'm at work or anything like that. So it never changed for me, but the way that we've been playing as well, because I think the off-field problems affect the on-field eventually, as well you guys will know fully. It can cause some real problems in the dressing room as well. So I think looking forward, we've got to keep going with these protests and things because it's the only way we're getting noticed and it's the only way something's going to change.
What is your gut feeling then in regards to change? What do you think will happen? Where do you see the club being in, say, 2, 3, 5 years' time?
I really don't know. I couldn't tell you at the minute. I switch daily, to be honest, reading the news coming out of the club about the legal proceedings and the non-transfers we make, and you don't know where we're going to be, to be honest, because I wouldn't bet on non-league against non-league the way we're going at the moment, but I obviously hope that doesn't happen. I hope we're back in the Championship. So.
Well, definitely. Do you think it might be a case, though, if you were to go into non-league, if you were to drop down there, that might start forcing the hand of your owners and maybe put you in a position where your supporters' trust, for instance, which I know are very vocal in their, I suppose, condemnation of your owners, where they could perhaps take over the club at that sort of level and begin to build it back up again? Obviously that's sounds a lot easier than in reality it actually is. I think you probably look at someone like Stockport County, for instance, who have gone through the same thing. I mean, they're getting there, but it's a slow process. I think it might be a case of that being a means to an end in some respects.
Yeah, I think if that did happen, I think that could be a chance for the club to rebuild. I think it's an extreme way of us rebuilding. To be honest, I'd hope it doesn't come to that. I'd hope that they make a decision soon about what they see they want to do with the future of the club, and make a decision on either staying and investing or leaving, preferably. So, and selling it to someone that has got a bit of football knowledge and communicates with the fans properly, because that's something that's been missing for a number of years.
So sort of looking on to obviously this season, so obviously we touched upon obviously 5 points drift at the bottom. It's interesting. I was just looking. Obviously, we played Coventry last time and drew 2 each with a late equaliser from Sordell, who I'm looking now was transferred. It looks like it was like a Sordell to Burton and then Stuart Bevan the other way. Would that be the right way of looking at him?
Yeah, it seems the way, and we got a loanee as well. So I think we got a pretty good deal. He wasn't really setting the world lights though. He's getting the odd goal, but Stuart Bevan seems a bit more of a worker, a bit more what you need in this league. You've had similar players in the past, so he's that player that will run and run and run. So.
And actually, Nick, I'm just thinking, Stuart Bevan, we've got history with him, haven't we? We come across him back in the early days in non-league.
But where would it have been?
I swear he was at...
Not Wallingford.
I swear he was at Wallingford.
Do you know, I think he probably was, you know.
This is a really bit sad, bit of noise, by the way. I do apologise. But I remember when we first reformed, we had an ongoing battle with AFC Wallingford. And I'm almost positive Stuart Bevan played for them. I'm going to just quickly, as I'm trying to blag this and trying to get some time.
You don't blag anything on this show, Stu. What are you about? Can I just say,
I'm spot on. 2004, 25 games for AFC Wallingford. He did play against us.
Which is interesting because at around that time, a certain Ismail Yakubu, I think, would have been playing in the Premier League for Middlesbrough and Portsmouth. And he'd have been, perhaps at that time, he was about 30. Now he must be about 50, but apparently he's still only 25. But apparently he's on the radar of Coventry as well. Has he actually signed for you, or is this
he's on trial at the minute?
He's actually on trial with you?
Yeah, he's been on trial for the last couple of days. And I think it'd be a pretty half-decent signing, to be honest. He's what we need. We need a bit of power and strength up front. Something we've been missing all season. So, I mean, it may be a good move by Slade. So.
Yeah, cause I did look, and it's interesting because obviously with all the fallout, I noticed that the Coventry Telegraph has been banned from covering games. That right now is like the news sort of place to go now about what's happening with the process and so forth like that. But they were saying that it's basically now looking for out of contract players really, just to try and try and get a team together now.
Yeah, they're trying to piece a team together. It's mostly a youth team at the moment, to be completely fair.
And
either loanees or our own. So
I know we sort of spoke to this before we sort of started chatting, but obviously Coventry City tonight, we will give away, we are recording on Tuesday night. Coventry City are playing in the in that worthless cup that everyone tried to get out of. I've just noticed, I just thought I'd give you a little update. 2-1 now of Bayer 2-1. Akinfenwa has just scored. Another link there. Another link there. But it's really weird, isn't it? It's sort of like it's a chance for Wembley. It's a chance to get some real, go to Wembley. Coventry got a massive potential fan base, haven't they? It seems quite big. Seems quite busy there tonight. So it does seem like it's captured the imagination just to get the club to Wembley this time.
Yeah, I think they were expecting something about 13,000. I don't know how many's there now. I know they'd sold 9,000 or something yesterday. So, and I think, don't get me wrong, I would have been there tonight, but if it wasn't for other things that I was busy with. But yeah, I can completely support people getting behind them. It's the first chance of getting to Wembley since 1987. So, yeah, which would have been
in Spurs game, wouldn't it? With the Keith Houchin, if I remember properly. Is that right? Keith Houchin?
It was Keith Houchin, yeah. And Oggy.
Who can forget Steve Agrusovic?
I know, and you just mentioned these names, and it just shows you the rich history of Coventry City. So we really do hope that history does not. Well, you don't lose any of that history, and things can get sorted at your club. We of course wish you all the best, and I think I'm right in saying if anyone listening would like to lend a hand or learn more, the Sky Blue Trust is the place to go, skybluetrust.co.uk, for all the latest on the situation at Coventry. And Ryan, all we can say is, we wish you all the best.
And yourselves, and I hope you do well this season.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Of course, Stu, as we did mention there during our interviews with Gavin and Ryan, both Charlton and Coventry are visiting us, if I can get my words out, over the course of the coming week. We'll just look ahead to the first one, I think. Charlton. Big game. As you know, it was possibly the greatest away day we've had in years earlier in the season. Possibly the best game of football I've seen in my time watching football. It was amazing, wasn't it? Especially that moment when Dominic Polion scored the winning goal at the Valley. You'll never forget that moment, will you?
Well, Polion didn't score the winner. Barnett scored the winner.
Well, that's clearly not true.
I remember the goals well because I was following on Twitter thinking, I can't believe I'm missing this game. And then, of course, Barney got the winner, didn't he?
I was so caught up in the excitement of the best game of football ever that I have got the goals the wrong way round. But yes, either way you look at it, what a day out that was. But anyway,
Yeah.
Charlton have improved markedly after a dip earlier in the season, and they come into us a little bit of form, but also, well, let's not lie, we've already mentioned it in our interview with Gavin earlier, but there's a bit of a sideshow this weekend, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. Let's be honest. This is the first time that can't we swear, but we all know him from down the road, or down quite a big road. It's his first time actually at our place after all the stuff he got involved in at the previous club. So I think he's got a lot coming his way, and he deserves it. If I'm being truthful, I'm not one normally to. Well, apart from Steve Evans, he and I still remember that. The classic moment he got sent off because of the abuse we gave him. But it does cause a side. One thing we've got to make sure it does, and I know we're obviously talking about it. We've got to make sure that it doesn't affect our performance. Or if it does, it means we put that extra 10% in, which we normally do. So, big game. They are second in the form, guys. So they have hit form. There's no denying that. Got a few injuries, a few changes here and there. They have changed their style recently, but they're on good form. So it's going to be a tough game. Look at the form guide. They're second. We are sitting down 21st, which shows really how bad we have been recently. So we've got a lot to do this weekend.
Charlton have an owner that apparently said football's not about winning or losing, it's just having a good time and having a dance at the end. They've now got a manager that likes to dance around his living room. They seem like a perfect fit. I really, really hope we turn them over, but it is going to be a big, big ask. If you were to chuck a scoreline prediction, what would you go for?
Joe, I'm really confident the atmosphere will be be a really good atmosphere on Saturday. I'm confident we'll win. At home games, I'm reasonably confident. We've done well. I'm probably looking at a 2-1 win for Wimbledon.
I think you might have said that last week, but anyway, I'm not going to hold it against you. Any other games on Saturday that take your eye in League One? It's a bit. Every week we seem to do this, and I kind of look at the fixtures and go, ugh. I think Northampton-Chesterfield I'm going to pick out this week, because Northampton I still feel are going to slide into a little bit of trouble. They are in not good form. I think that's a phrase that makes some form of grammatical sense. Against Chesterfield, who are fighting hard to keep their place in the division. Otherwise, not a lot going on. Bury Swindon, similarly, bottom of the table sort of clash.
There's some decent ones, actually. And this one is probably what I'm looking at is Bolton at home to Walsall. Bolton are really starting to fall now. Bolton are 7 points off second place now. Sold Zach Clough to Nottingham Forest, so lost. I think we probably agree we saw him down at our place, was just a different level, wasn't he, down at our place. And they got Walsall, who are starting to hit a little bit of form from where they were. So I'm quite interested to see how Bolton get on. I really think Bolton are ones that are going to slip down in playoff positions. I really do. Mill Southend is quite a decent one as well. Both looking Mill 9th, Southend 6th. There's a few. But yeah, it's all about us this weekend, really, isn't it? It's all about what we do, I think.
This week's Polion Go is going to start with a somewhat cryptic clue, because I know you enjoy them so much, Stu.
Love them.
I know you do. So let's get into this one. Dominic Polion, as a professional footballer, cannot bet on any professional football matches. It is outlawed as part of his profession. However, would he be able to bet on the game? This particular team would seem to encourage him to have a little bit of a flutter.
Oh, wow.
No,
I haven't got a clue.
No. It's an interesting clue, that one.
Yeah,
I'll reveal how it links in with the answer at the end.
I'm sure you will.
Second clue is that Dom has got the train to this game, and before he's gone to the stadium, he decided to take a trip to the maritime experience of this town, which is located very, very close to the stadium itself. Maritime experience is kind of like you at the moment, isn't it, with your wedding coming up? You see what I did there? See?
Do you know what? I think I've got it after the second clue this time.
I don't think you have, but go on. I'll wait to be proved wrong.
Because I remember seeing signs for this when we went there.
Then
and
you will get it.
I've just remembered the first one. It's probably the coldest place on earth.
Which is...
Hartlepool.
Wow, I am super impressed this week.
Because of the pool, isn't it? I get that now.
Yeah, the
But
pools.
I do remember seeing the signs for it. It's officially the coldest place on earth. And my good friend Andy, who's a Yeovil fan, was up there on Saturday following Hartlepool. So, yeah, I'm quite impressed with that.
Very, very good. I don't know if we need to do the other clues.
No,
Just for those that maybe like for the sake of it, because, for whatever reason, they might want to know what the other clues were. I was going to mention that he sat in the Miramax stand, which is apparently going to celebrate its 50th anniversary next year. And the anagram clue this week was Aviator Prick. Because the ground is called what, Stu? For the full Polion Go victory, what ground?
I can't remember
the name of the stadium?
I can't remember what it's called.
I don't think I can give you the point or the win if you don't get the stadium name.
I can't remember what it's called.
Right, think of the anagram, think of the second word. That will help you with the second word of the stadium.
I can't remember what it's called.
Do you want me to tell you? Do you want me to put you out of your misery?
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called.
Victoria Park.
Ah. I must say, it's a place I don't really like too much, if I'm being truthful, because it's cold, it's on the North Sea, and I've not seen a score a goal there, so I don't really remember too much what it's called.
I've been there once. It was very, very cold. Everyone connected with the club that we dealt with was very, very friendly, but I don't think I've had a beef burger that had 0% beef in before I visited Hartlepool.
I remember you get that burger as well, and I was thinking, you sure?
But literally, I can't even explain what it was made of, but there was no meat involved.
It's really weird. Last season, I went with Trev and Rocket with the kit because the team went up by train, and I must admit we were waiting. It's probably I actually probably gave in at that point of us getting promotion. It was one of those games where we just got stuffed, and I remember chatting to Ivor Heller, who was of the same opinion. We both looked at each other thinking, I can't believe we are throwing this away, and yet look at that. It was a little bit of a turning point because I think we lost one game after that, I believe. But yeah, Hartlepool is a soul-destroying place when you just got beat. It's cold.
Now we are running late, but sounding great as always. Before we sign off this week's show, we've got a bit of housekeeping to do. Have to say, well done, and thank you very much, George Jones, who provided a live stream of the Ladies FA Cup tie on the weekend against Brighton and Hove Albion. I think we ended up on the losing side of that by 4-1 in the end.
Yeah, we did. Brighton have just got promoted to the Women's Super League, I believe, which plays during the spring and summer. So they just, from hearing, they've signed the Arsenal ladies goalkeeper. I've seen a few of the ladies games, and that was a different level in terms of football. Brighton played some really, really nice football, but the women and ladies gave them one hell of a game, and took the game to them. But they lost 4-1 eventually. I think in the end the extra ability told, but I think Brighton were probably expecting a little bit of an easier afternoon than what they had, and women and ladies did very well, so that's really good news. It's been a week of obviously getting beaten in the cup games, obviously because the youth team also got beat in the FA Youth Cup up at Preston, so that's a shame.
We were recording, weren't we, prior to the game at Preston, so
that's
that was
right.
Last Wednesday, so this is the first podcast we'd been able to actually mention the result. But I don't think, again, there's any shame whatsoever in travelling up to the club the size of Preston and just on the wrong side, just edged out in the end. But hopefully things will turn around this week in terms of our fortunes for all of our teams, starting with Charlton on Saturday.
Definitely. Just give you a very quick stat, Nick, by the way, for Coventry. Like these sequences that we have. Coventry haven't... Let's have a quick look here. I've got Charlton stats. I'll just get Coventry because I had them. Coventry, games since a win away from home. 8 consecutive games they've not won away from home. And they've succeeded in the last 12 consecutive away games. Just thought I'd check it out there.
Thanks. Well, they have got a game before they come to us, haven't they? So hopefully they might get some of those records out of the way at Oldham, of all places. What a big game that is. How did I miss that one in the grand scheme of things? Huge game on Saturday, down at the bottom of the table. You mentioned that Coventry, you said part-owned or fully owned by a hedge fund?
Yes.
Yes. I was going to try and open my own sort of hedge fund with shops around the country, but I couldn't get enough branches.
Oh dear, I think that brings us to the end of this podcast.
It does. Big shout out to Mark Hendricks at cuttingitfinefilms.com, who's put together the January Goal of the Month competition. All 6 goals, I think, that we scored in January. If you've not seen it, check our Facebook page. It's on Instagram as well, at 9YRS Podcast. Our Facebook group, I should say. So search for the 9 Years Podcast group on Facebook, and you can have your vote in our Goal of the Month poll, which seems to be, at the moment, at time of recording, a runaway leader, Dean Parrott, with his goal against Oxford, with his stunner. So thank you very much, Mark, for doing that. And I'm guessing you're right, Stu. I think that does bring us to the end of this week's show.
It does.
Well, it's been good fun, as always. Jinx there. And just say, thank you very much for joining us. Updates from our games this week will be on, as I've just mentioned, Instagram, Twitter as well, at 9YRS Podcast. So look out for Man of the Match polls and 3-word reports on there. Big thank you to Gavin and Ryan, our Charlton and Coventry fans as well, for joining us this week. They're fascinating to speak to. Actually, real pleasure to speak to this week. Very much enjoyed speaking to both those. Fantastic clubs. We do wish them all the best. In fact, I should mention, if you want to know more about the relative situation, we've already mentioned the Sky Blue Trust. Check them out for Coventry City fans, skybluetrust.co.uk. Also, if you want to learn more about the Charlton situation, there's a few podcasts you can listen to which are available over the internet at www.gettingtoknowthenetwork.com. And they are definitely, I think there's 3 episodes on there at the moment, they're really worth a listen to learn more about the Charlton situation. So there's gettingtoknowthenetwork.com. Have a search for that. All that's left to say is enjoy the coming week. Do you know what's happening this weekend, Stu? Just in time for half term?
This weekend, no.
There is a wrestling pay-per-view to keep me entertained.
Happy days.
We've had the Royal Rumble. That was great fun. Now I think it's the Elimination Chamber.
Oh, that sounds a bit ominous.
It should be good fun again, as always. So that's going to keep me occupied in my half term. Have you got any plans for the week?
Me? No. I'm quite pleased. Obviously, because I don't do away games at the moment, I'm quite pleased we've got 2 home games coming up. I think that will give me enough to do, and hopefully I'll be in good mood from Saturday following through to Tuesday.
Fingers crossed. And you'll need to be in a good mood for next week's show, where we'll be joined by Niall Ranger, who's going to discuss, well, who knows what we're going to discuss with Niall Ranger. It's probably something's going to happen over the coming week that he'd have done, we can talk about, just to add to the long list of things. But join us next week for Niall. We will see you then.